Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us this afternoon for the ribbon cutting on the restored Superintendent's Cottage here at Dale Cemetery. It's so nice to be able to be together in person for this momentous occasion. This project has been quite a long time in coming. In fact, one of the first grant applications we submitted after I came into office in 2016 was for technical assistance with this project. So it's very meaningful to be here today to officially cut the ribbon on the completed cottage. First, I would like to thank Cemetery Superintendent Pete Connolly for all his work caring for this incredible historic asset in the town of Ossining. Under Pete's careful and caring hand and the leadership of my predecessor, now town clerk, Suzanne Donnelly, Sue, wave, Dale Cemetery had undergone a near complete transformation with improvements to the facilities and grounds. Those improvements then fostered a renewed interest in preserving our community's history with the creation of the Ossining Historic Cemeteries Conservancy and then town historian Martha Masidi. When I came into office, the cottage was one of the remaining projects that needed attention, I should say large projects, in the cemeteries, and it quickly became a priority to find the most cost-effective way to preserve this historic building. Thank you to my town board colleagues past and present, including Northern Wiltshire, Liz Feldman, who's here with me today, Jackie Shaw, Greg Meyer, Karen DeTore, and Kim Jeffrey for appreciating the importance of this project and supporting it in our capital plan for the past few years. Although we did not receive that very first grant, we did meet Stephen Tilley and Stephanie Reiner from the firm of Stephen Tilley Architect as part of our research writing that first grant. Stephen and Stephanie have become vital partners in this effort, bringing with them vast experience in historic preservation and municipally led projects in Westchester County. We are grateful to Stephen, Stephanie, and their team for helping us craft a scope that was responsible in terms of budget, yet still significant in its strong preservation components. And for picking out some dynamite paint colors. You have to admit, they really rock. Thanks, Stephanie. The final piece of the puzzle came together when Tom Clemens of Clemco Construction Incorporated thankfully won the bid to be general contractor on this project. Tom is a local guy, and we could tell from our very first meeting with him that he understood the importance of this project to our community and would be able to take on this transformation. And it certainly has been one. Tom and his team were able to keep this project within our budget and really helped those dollars go far. We know Tom threw in some extras along the way and never hit us up for overages, which is certainly unusual with this type of project, especially in the middle of a pandemic, when you never know what ghosts will turn up. I think we can all agree the renovation turned out amazing. And now this building definitely fits in with the beauty of the historic grounds surrounding us. I would also like to thank the Town and Village of Ossining staff who worked on this project, starting with Andy Teese, who helped shepherd the project from budget to drawings to construction to completion. Andy, wave, give a wave. Thank you to Dale Brennan and Liz Nakari, our comptroller and deputy comptroller, for helping us figure out how to pay for it all while keeping our tax rate down for the taxpayers. Pete Connolly with his highway superintendent hat. Yes, definitely big thumbs up for Dale and team. Pete Connolly with his highway superintendent hat on and his crew, including Marco Piscopiello and Vittorio Sola, for helping with the masonry work on the path, plus Parks foreman Mario Villardo and his staff, Mark Gallagher and Alvin Silage, for helping with some of the interior construction and leading this first in the town or village green concrete stamped masonry path project outside for the finishing touches. Thanks, Mary. I know you took the lead on that. our combined Parks, Highway, and Cemetery staff, Alicia Santucci, Jose Castro Sr., Jose Castro Jr., and Frank Castro work at the cemetery day to day, ensuring that this place remains beautiful and welcoming to all at times when families are overcome with grief, having just lost a loved one. And finally, my staff, past and present, Maddie Zahach, Karina Scorsia, and the one and only Victoria Caffarelli, who has been the champion of this project from the very beginning, helping to keep it moving forward all the time to get us to completion. I am happy to be erasing Dale Cemetery Superintendent's Cottage renovation off of my little moving whiteboard and the running to-do list in the office. As we look ahead to the future, we also must look to our community's history and our past. Now that this building renovation is complete, or at least the outside of it, there is so much potential to better showcase the long and storied history of those who rest here and how they contributed to Ossining. We look forward to working closely with the Ossining Historic Cemeteries Conservancy as they continue their excellent work preserving Dale and Sparta cemeteries, and hope this building will become a more fitting space for preservation and education. Thank you to current and former town and village historians, Martha Masidi, Scott Craven, Dana White, now village trustee, and Joyce Chirac-Cole for everything you have done and continue to do to ensure Ossining remembers and reflects upon a rich and complex history. And a big shout out to OHCC for all of the continued work you have been doing, preserving the stones, setting up our trail, our tour of the cemetery, and really highlighting all of the people who were buried here who are such an important part of the fabric of this community and well beyond. I'd like to turn it over now to our historic experts, starting with Stephanie Reinert, Historic Preservation Director for Stephen Tilley Architect and the lead architect on the project, for a few words on the historic significance of this building in the context of the cemetery and historic cemeteries across the country, and on some of the details incorporated into the restoration. After that, we're going to hear from Dana White. So come on up, Stephanie. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. It's so nice to see so many people here after years of working with Dana and the whole town and everybody on this project. And it was just such a pleasure. I'm not very good at this, sorry, but in terms of speaking about the significance of the building on the larger scale, we usually look towards the National Register of Historic Places, to which there was a 2013 submission on the form, and that actually led us to one of the most informative documents that led us to the restoration project, which was an 1856 article by the designer Howard Daniels. And Howard Daniels was known throughout the northeastern part of our country as a rural cemetery designer, and he completed many cemetery designs, most significantly Syracuse Oakwood Cemetery, as well as some in Ohio and some in Poughkeepsie, Binghamton, Port Jervis, and Watertown, as well as the Baltimore Druid Hill Park. I love the cemetery, which I have to say first, and the significance goes beyond the local region into the nation and the state. I'll touch in on a few of the items that we worked on for this particular project. Our first major concern was to make sure the exterior envelope was preserved so that it would be continued to be used well as a structure. So there's new roofs, there's a rebuilt chimney, which looks like what it did in the 1856 article. We reconstructed the porch that we're standing on right now to match the original. I think you'll notice the new and restored windows, which have the color scheme that Dana pointed out, which is based on the stucco, which needed a little bit of patching as well. We have these wonderful new coppers, gutters, and downspouts. And there's a few other things that won't be as obvious to you, but are very important to the preservation of the building itself. It's just fixing the stone lintels and some other items like that. And as well, they're also continuing forward with some interior work. So I just wanted to congratulate the town and say not everyone takes on this type of restoration of a structure, but it's very exciting and very wonderful to see that. And thank you, Dana, and everybody.
And next up, I would love for Dana White to talk a little bit about the history of Dale Cemetery and how important it is in this area and also for Ossining. Okay, do it, whatever.
A little rusty. A little rusty. However, first, I just want to say, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
Wow,
Yes.
because I remember when someone was living here and it was kind of falling down, and you know, you would look at it and go, what a cute little life. And then as a former member of the Ossining Historic Cemeteries Conservancy and as village historian for 5.5 years, I mean, threw myself into studying this place, which is why I didn't write an actual speech, because if I can't talk off the top of my head about Dale Cemetery, then I can't talk about anything. So what should I say next? Oh, so Martha Massey, who I wish could be here today, and I worked on the Dale Cemetery Heritage Trail with the OHCC. Thank you to Jane Botticelli, who is not here today. However, Joyce Markovitz is here. Patty Bassick is here. Regina Albinas is here. And are you a member?
Yes.
Okay. No, I'm blanking. Oh my God, that was so amazing. Eileen is here. So we embarked on this, and first we had to decide who we would write about and put on the trail, and there are many, many candidates. There are Revolutionary War soldiers, there are early landowners, there are jazz musicians, there are Arctic explorers, there was a very famous psychiatrist of world renown, and it was really a great exercise and a lot of fun to research and write about these folks. And I highly recommend, there's a sign up at the other entrance, but I highly recommend you grab a map and go and read a few, because A, we worked really hard on it, and B, we didn't put these online because we want people to come and read them and see them and explore the cemetery, which dates to 1851. That was when some prominent members of Sing Sing Society decided they needed a rural cemetery. The rural cemetery movement was really beginning to gain hold, and it was at a time when public spaces and outdoor spaces were beginning to become really important. So you see kind of right after Dale Cemetery, they started Central Park. Ironically, one of the finalists in the design for Central Park was Howard Daniels, and he was hired to design the cemetery. Now, one of the 12 members of the original Dale Cemetery board was named Munson Lockwood. His family actually donated this land for the cemetery. And maybe he did that because it's not very good farmland, as it pitches and rolls and goes up and down, and it's not the best planting terrain. However, you can plant headstones here pretty successfully. In fact, they even said that the soil was perfect for internment. Now, I don't know what that means. Lots of words? Now, Munson Lockwood had another feather in his cap. He was the warden of Sing Sing Prison. Local boy, made good. Back in those days, that job was often held by a prominent local citizen. And at that time, also, they had very busy marble quarries, limestone quarries. The entire prison was filled with those quarries. One of the big reasons they brought it to Sing Sing was that these large quarries existed, or these deposits of stone, and they could just mine the stone on site and build with it without having to schlep it up and down the river. And you can find this stone at Lyndhurst, you can find it in the city, you can find it in Albany. It was sold on the market. So it was actually a profit center for the prison. Now, so Munson Lockwood, being the warden, said, well, look, we have access to all this stone. So these columns that you see are made of what we call Sing Sing marble. The receiving vault is Sing Sing marble. The foundation of this house may be partly Sing Sing marble. I'm not sure, there might be some in there. But there are several structures, some of the statuary. So that was great. The problem was he didn't pay for any of it. He just appropriated it, and he had convict labor create these items. So he actually ended up being charged with embezzlement from the state. But normally don't talk about this. In fact, you won't find it in any of the written literature. But everybody knows it happened. So he actually, it was a big scandal. It was a big scandal, but it passed. And you know what we have is really one of the finer examples of the rural cemetery, probably the only one in this area. Is there another one in Westchester? So yeah, Hollow isn't really considered part of that tradition, I don't think. Now you may ask yourself, if this cemetery dates to 1851, how could there possibly be people from who fought in the Revolutionary War buried here? Because that happened, hi Wayne, that happened way long before, right? Well, it was pretty commonplace, especially at the beginning, because this was a big deal. If you had a relative who had fought in the war, he was probably buried in a family burial ground, a small plot somewhere probably near where they lived. But if you lived in Sing Sing and you bought some plots, it was a big deal to have a family plot, and you would move, you would disinter your ancestor and have them reinterred here. So there are about half a dozen, I think, of those people in family plots. It was pretty commonplace to disinter. This is kind of the central, you know, city of the dead for Sing Sing, right? Which is what it was considered. It was considered a place where people could come and walk and be and remember their loved ones and literally have picnics, listen to music. It was a park. It was a park of the dead. But it was also a place where life very much went on. So it was kind of a nice merger. And so when all the churches, pretty much every church in town had a burial yard. You know, you've seen the pictures of the old churches with the headstones. Well, the First Baptist had, where South Highland is now, a whole burial yard for the members of its congregation. They were all dug up, and people were moved here. Elijah Hunter, who owned a good part of Sing Sing in the late 18th century, was probably the most important citizen in that regard, was actually buried off of Hunter Street, which was named for him, in the family cemetery. He was also moved here, so you will find Elijah Hunter, who died long before this cemetery was conceived of. So today, it's still a working cemetery, all right? It has many, many generations of Ossining residents, but also people from elsewhere. It currently has a large Chinese section, I believe, right, Pete? And the thing I really love about Dale is that it's really a cemetery for everybody. And there's a great quote that was in the 1851, sorry, the 1851 opening remarks at the ribbon cutting ceremony that they had back then. The dedication address. And it went in part, "Here is a place of which all may be proud. Here are all classes, sects, and parties may drop their distinction. Here arrogance and envy, bigotry and intolerance, and all uncharitableness must be subdued by the consciousness in all of our mortality and need of mercy." So thank you very much. That was a quick breezy take on the history of
Thank you, Dana. That was fantastic. And I think it's so significant that today we raised the pride flag in Market Square, and earlier this week we raised the Juneteenth flag. So we'll talk about Ossining being a welcoming community to all, and certainly Dale Cemetery is a welcoming cemetery to all. So it's appropriate that we're cutting the ribbon on this wonderful historic restoration today. I'm going to ask, do you want to say anything? Okay. Tom, did you want to add anything about your experience? I thought maybe you could talk a little bit about some of the little secrets that you found along the way. We'd love to hear from you, even though I didn't give you a heads up, so I know you're not even prepared, but I know you have some.
Well, we didn't find too many secrets, which probably was a good thing, actually. Sometimes we find secrets that we wish we hadn't found. But I did want to thank Dana for the kind words she said about me earlier on. And I also want to make sure to acknowledge, you know, this project, yes, what you see is due to my expertise and to Stephanie and Stephen's design, but it's really a combination of three parties working very well together, which as a contractor of over 45 years does not happen all the time, unfortunately. It was a pleasure working with Dana and with Victoria and with Pete and with Andy. And it's always nice for the contractor to be in a good mood when he does the job. So, and Stephanie and I got along fantastically well. She respects my abilities and I respect hers. The only time there was a little bit of doubt in my mind was when she previewed the paint colors. And I thought to myself, not really my colors. I think Dana sensed that at a meeting that we had. But just to show you that old dogs can still change their minds, I've really grown to like the paint colors. I think they're super. I never would have chosen them myself, but I actually wish the screens weren't on the windows because you could see the red better. It just works perfectly with the other colors. So I learned something about paint colors on this project. Does it match the wallpaper? Oh, we did discover some old wallpaper, but it didn't look like 1860. It looked like maybe 1910 or 1920. And we did discover there was actually a fireplace in what was recently used as a kitchen covered over, and we uncovered that and made a mantle for it. So I think that looks very nice as well. Yeah, I'm so happy I got a chance to do this job. I've been coming here to the cemetery since I was a kid. We have a family plot up there, and I remember very well how well, tired, decrepit, overgrown, you know, just had a feeling of being like not 100 years old, but like 500 years old, the way it looked back in those days. And I can't get over how much better it looks now, specifically since the town took it over. I mean, the grounds, you're looking at, it's never looked this good. I mean, thanks to Pete and his crew, it's unbelievable. And like I said, I've been coming here for almost 60 years. And I'm very pleased that the town took on this project, which seems like one of the final links to the beauty of this historic cemetery. So I'm proud and happy that we did this job, and I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
Thanks again. Okay, so now if everybody could gather around, we're going to cut the ribbon, do our little ribbon cutting. I'd love to have everybody come and join us in the picture who you know, I gave a shout out to all of you folks, OHCC, the Parks Department, Andy, come on, Sue, come on, all the people who you know who you are, who've been involved in this project in one way or the other, and we want you to be part of this cutting. And also, I just want to let everybody know that it was really the exterior and the envelope of the building that's been preserved. So we want everybody to come inside and enjoy some cookies and refreshments after this. But just be aware that it does look nice. Pete did a great job in making it look good inside. And again, I just want to give one more shout out to Sue as she comes up here, because we know that a lot of the description that Tom just gave of what changed was really due to Sue's caring and taking the time to care about the cemetery and making a big difference. So really appreciate that. Okay, I'm going to turn off the microphone. We're going to cut a ribbon. Okay, and then now I need. Okay, we got that.
Cemetery guy should call.
Okay.
Cemetery guy should call.
Yeah, cemetery guy. Come on. Come on, Castro 1, Castro 2. No, Castro 3. That's not Castro. Oh, Castro 3. Castro 1, 2, and 3. Alicia, what are you doing?
That's gotta be part of this.
Come on. You want to hold the nails? Oh, there's the ribbon. There's a secret spot to cut right here. Yeah, there's a secret spot. Here, let's. Secret spot to cut. Stephanie, come on up a little closer. Where's Stephanie? Come on, you guys. This is your baby. Come on. Come on. Come on. Okay, is everybody in? Needs to be in? Andy?
Yep,
Yeah,
I'm here.
you in? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, Victoria, you can be seen? Okay. Are you ready? Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Peter, turn around.
Okay, everybody turn around for one picture.